Yes, so that is the story of Jacob and Esau. Crazy story, right? Well, let's break it down. So Jacob and Esau were twins, right? And they didn't get along. Bible says they did not get along, right? And Esau was the oldest child, which means that he would be given a birthright. And if you remember in the story, a birthright meant that he would be in charge of everything, right? He'd be like the boss. So now, Jacob and Esau, they didn't get along. Esau was the oldest, but Jacob and Esau were different, although they were twins and although they were brothers, right? Jacob had smooth skin and he was very quiet and stayed indoors. Esau was a hunter. He would go out and hunt, and he was very, very hairy, right? Imagine being covered in hair, being super hairy. That was Esau. So Esau was rough and a hunter, and Jacob was more quiet, reserved, smooth skin. They were different. One day, Esau's out hunting. He's so tired, he comes back home, and he's so hungry. And Jacob is making a soup or a stew. And Esau wanted some, so he said, give me some of that soup. But Jacob was a little sneaky. So Jacob said, I'll give you this soup if you sell me your birthright. Give it to me. I want to be in charge of everything. And Esau was so hungry and so tired that he gave Jacob his birthright. And he said, you could have it. I'm just so hungry. So Esau gave up his birthright for a simple meal. Esau gave up being in charge of everything for a simple meal. Now, time passes, and Isaac, Jacob and Esau's dad, was going to die. He was dying, and it was time for him to give Esau his birthright. So Esau went out to hunt, and while Esau was hunting, Jacob knew he had the birthright because Esau sold it to him, right? Jacob goes in and pretends to be Esau. So Jacob, he wasn't hairy, he wasn't a hunter, he didn't smell like animals. So Jacob had to go and put sheepskin all over his arms and his body. So when his dad touched him, because his dad was old, he couldn't really see, he would think, oh, this is Esau because his body is very hairy. So Jacob tricked his dad and got the birthright. And when Esau came back, Jacob already had the birthright. Jacob ended up having to leave and flee and run away because Esau was very mad. So at the end of the story, we see that Jacob betrayed his brother. Jacob stole the birthright, but Jacob still received the blessing. He still received the birthright. Now, what does that teach us? That many times we mess up. Many times we don't do what's right. Sometimes we don't do our homework when we're supposed to. Sometimes we don't clean our room when we're supposed to. We don't listen to our parents when we're supposed to. And God still blesses us. We are still a part of God's story, even if we mess up. So the lesson to be learned here is that one, we need to be loving and kind towards other people. If Jacob and Esau would have gotten along and would have been loving and kind to each other, they wouldn't have had all these problems. So it's important to remember that we need to be loving and kind. So at the end of the day, Esau missed out on his blessing, and Jacob was the one who had the birthright and who took the birthright. And although Jacob did that, many years later, Esau forgave Jacob. They forgave each other. Right? So we can learn from this story that whether it's our brother, whether it's our friend, we need to be loving and kind, not be jealous, not be mean, right? Because if God has a blessing for you, God also has a blessing for me. If God has a blessing for your brother and your sister, God also has a blessing for you. So this week's weekly challenge, are you ready? Is going to be to spread love. Take a picture and create a picture of you being loving and kind to someone. There's so many ways that we can be loving and kind. You could be loving and kind to your brother, your sister, to your parents, to your friends. You could be loving and kind to so many people. So this week, your challenge is to do something that is loving and something that is kind, and make sure your parents take a picture of it and post it in the Facebook Parents Group page. Okay, guys, that is your weekly challenge. And right now, before we go to Alexis's last song, I have a few questions about tonight's story to see if you were really paying attention. Here we go.